Hello, everybody. Today's August 8th. It's currently 8:39 p.m. Central Time. Decided to go live today a little early just so we can talk about tonight's topic. Hang on. I gotta put it on my Discord. I haven't been live in like 2-3 weeks, maybe. Tonight I decided to go live. Actually this week and coming up I will be live pretty much all Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I think Monday, and then I have another one next weekend. So tonight we are going to talk about Hurricane Katrina. I saw the recent documentary of Hurricane Katrina. I think it was on Disney. It was an amazing documentary. It gave out a lot of good information, and that's what made me want to come on live tonight and talk about Hurricane Katrina and the things that we missed. But before we get into it, I hope you guys are doing okay. I hope you're doing well. If you're on my replay crew, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing amazing. I've missed you all. I've been busy. So I was like, you know what? I need to come back on live. I miss my little fam. I miss my gang. So I'm back on live. Today, Hurricane Katrina. Tomorrow, we're talking about a different case. And Sunday, we'll go back and we'll talk about Casey Anthony. I know Dawn Marie had mentioned in her live that she saw the last episode and I forgot to do the next one. So Sunday, I'll be doing the next Casey Anthony live so we could talk more about it. Before I get into it, I do need to do my disclaimer. Everything I say, it's all legit. My opinion, it's for entertainment and educational purposes only. I get my sources from trusted resources, news sources. I'm not responsible for anyone else's commentary, actions, what they say, anything like that. So yeah. So let's just jump right into today's topic. I'm pretty sure everybody knows Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina happened back in 2000 and as soon as it loads, I will tell you. 2005. Fun fact, I was 4 years old when it happened. So Hurricane Katrina was one of the most powerful, devastating, and historic tropical cyclones. She was a hurricane. I think she was a category 5 or 4. She caused 1,392 fatalities and damages that estimated at 125 billion in August of 2005. She mainly hit the city of New Orleans, so in Louisiana area. It was one of the biggest storms. I was little, so all I could remember when it came down to Katrina was that they told us here in Texas, because I live in the South. I live in the South Central Texas. They told us just to be prepared if Katrina ever decided to make landfall to Texas, because you know how these hurricanes have a mind of its own. But it ended up shifting towards Louisiana more, and it caused a lot of devastations. Now, if you're from Texas, you know Hurricane Harvey and Beryl hit, and I think another one, I don't remember. But tonight we're going to talk about Hurricane Katrina and what happened. I was little when this happened. I've seen stories on TikTok of people coming out and saying their side of the story of Katrina. Not only in New Orleans, there's some people in Mississippi who've came out and they've talked their story about what happened when Hurricane Katrina hit. Let me mute my phone. When Hurricane Katrina hit, seeing the documentary on Disney made me want to do this live, because I'm like, nobody really talks about, natural disasters like this. So I was like, might as well just come out and let's talk about Katrina and everything that happened, the stories, the timeline, pretty much everything. So It's been a while since I've done this. I don't remember how to share my screen. There it is. StreamYard's updated a lot. So I do usually do my little intro video with the songs that I have from Melissa and from another friend who made me some. But with the way StreamYards is, I can't really show them no more, and I'm kind of sad because I really did like both songs. So I'm going to start posting them on my Discord. If you're not on my Discord, you should definitely join my Discord because I put good information. That's how you know I'll go live. I put a lot of things on my Discord. But I'm going to put the music on there so you guys can hear the music because I don't know why StreamYard does not let me. I think I have to pay. I'm using the free plan for now. But this is from the National Weather Service regarding Hurricane Katrina. So as I told you, Hurricane Katrina happened back in August of 2005. It became the largest and extremely powerful hurricane that caused enormous destruction and significant loss of life. It is the costliest hurricane to ever hit the United States, surpassing the record previously held by Hurricane Andrew from 1992. In addition, Katrina is one of the 5 deadliest hurricanes to ever strike in the United States, and all Hurricane Katrina was responsible for 1,833 fatalities. According to a different website, the actual fatalities is 1,392. And approximately, it says here it's 108 billion in damages, but really it's 125 billion in damages. So this one needs to get its facts updated. On August 23rd, a tropical depression formed over the southeastern Bahamas, becoming Tropical Storm Katrina. On August 24th, as it moved into the central Bahamas, the storm continued to track west while gradually intensifying and made its initial landfall along the southeast Florida coast on August 25th as a Category 1 hurricane, which is only 80 miles an hour of wind. On the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, after moving the west coast or the west across Florida and into very warm waters into the Gulf, Katrina intensified rapidly and attained Category 5 status with winds of 175 miles per hour for a period of time. As it moved northwest on August 28th, Katrina weakened to a Category 3 before making landfall in the northern Gulf Coast, first in southeast Louisiana, which is 125 miles of wind, and then made landfall once more along the Mississippi Gulf Coast with 120-mile winds. Katrina finally weakened below hurricane intensified late on August 29th over east central Mississippi. So the thing is, between between I think it's August to beginning of October, it's hurricane season. So like right now we're in the middle of hurricane season. So this is the time that the hurricanes start happening along the Gulf, the Atlantic. You mostly see it in the Atlantic and the Gulf. You don't really see it anywhere else. But whenever a hurricane reaches landfall, it weakens, it dies out. It becomes either a lesser category or it goes into a tropical storm. And I think there's one forming in the Atlantic, if I'm not mistaken. But Katrina, it formed the Atlantic, went to the Gulf, it straightened in the Gulf, and then it went on land. So I do have archives. It was so hard to find all these archives of the things involving Katrina. Now, when Katrina was happening, President George Bush was our current president at the time. Before I even get to the president, let's talk a little bit about Katrina because I do have some words to say about the president and FEMA. So let's talk about hang on. I'm just trying to make sure I don't repeat myself. Okay. I do have some videos to show you about Katrina, but my computer decided to freeze. So give me 1 second. Okay, there it goes. Finally, my computer always does this. Every time I live stream, it freezes. Am I even talking, or it stopped talking for me? There it goes. Okay. I don't know what it's doing. Okay. So we're gonna see some videos regarding Hurricane Katrina. And then I'm gonna read you some like archives, some articles that I found about Katrina. I'm not gonna play the full video just because I don't want to get copyright straight. Hang on, guys. Okay, there it goes. It's loading. Can you hear me? Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Is my little thing moving? Testing 1 2 3. Yeah. Okay. It has me so small I can't see. Okay. So this is Hurricane Katrina Archive Master Tape 3 of 5. The date is August 29, 2005. So this is when Katrina made landfall. So this is during the day. The footage was shot in the morning hours after sunrise in downtown New Orleans, Louisiana. As the strongest winds hit the area, it was filmed along Canal Street in the French Quarter of the city as large debris was flying through the area and extreme winds damaged the taller buildings. Footage also includes the start of the escape from New Orleans Drive, where they attempted to drive out of the rapidly rising floodwaters as the levees started to fail around the city. So, little backstory on this. When Hurricane Katrina was coming, the news was putting it everywhere for people to evacuate. They were saying, you know, if you can't leave, please make sure everything's boarded up. Please make sure everything's okay. You know, but they were telling a lot of people to leave. A lot of people, when they were leaving, Katrina was already on its way and they were getting just the tail of it. You know how it has the tail around it? So people were getting stuck in the rain and they're like, you know what, let's all go home. A lot of people even made it to Texas. They made it out where Katrina was not going to hit. But unfortunately, there's some people who can't get up and move because they're elderly. They don't have anywhere to go. They're on ventilation machines. Some are in the hospital. Many things. And it always breaks my heart because it's so sad because not a lot of people can leave during these weather disasters. And it was mostly elderly and people who could not transport out. Or people who said, oh, we're going to ride the storm out and shouldn't be that bad. Now, the levees, if you watch the documentary, it's called Hurricane Katrina. I think it's called Time Against Katrina or something. It's on Disney Plus. If you have Disney, this is not sponsored by Disney, by the way, but if you have Disney Plus, it's on there, and it talks about how the levees in New Orleans weren't stable to hold in those waters. So of course the levees broke and it flooded the whole area. Not only were they getting flood from Katrina, they flooded out completely with the levees, and then of course the water in the Gulf that came on to shore. So that's why you saw everything was flooded out. I do recommend you see it. I think Netflix is going to drop a documentary of Katrina, I think on the 28th or 29th. It's the 20th anniversary of Katrina and the end of the month. So that's why I decided to talk about Katrina, to bring awareness of what happened in Katrina, and because the anniversary is coming up as well. So let's see this video. Shout out to these like storm chasers.
a lot of the taller buildings caused by the wind whipping around them. The smaller buildings are faring well. Right now, it's just rainwater ponding in downtown. And so I'm gonna bust ass down here and I'll report back. Later, bye.
Okay, I'm just gonna show you a little bit of those videos. But if you want to see the full video, you can head over to my Discord and you can watch all the videos. I even got the raw footage of when these newscasters, I don't remember which news station it was or journalists, but they went out. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Am I talking? Hold on. I am, no? Hello? Okay, yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, I don't know why it did that. But I actually got the raw footage of where these newscasters went out to go recover bodies. And they were showing like the most raw footage ever of them in a boat. And they were with rescuers and they were going and picking up the deceased. And it was so unreal because like you just see like the bodies there, like, and I would think like, you know, maybe like they would blur those things out so like we don't see it, but no, they didn't blur it out. Like they actually like showed the bodies like laying in the middle of the streets, laying wherever they were at, just there. I have that raw footage. I cannot show you because YouTube will take me down. But if you are curious, you know, or if you want to like see that, or if you want to see the full footage of these storm chasers going out in Katrina, if you want to read the documentations here, I do have a 737 page of a written statement regarding Katrina and a lot of things. So if you want to learn more about Katrina, my Discord is literally down below. Join the Discord and you can look under true crime cases and you'll find Hurricane Katrina and you'll find everything about Hurricane Katrina. But let's read. Remember I told you about the levees, how they broke. And in the documentary, if you watch the documentary, they're going to say that they knew the levees weren't stable enough for Katrina. So this is an affidavit of a personal witness. So this was happened in the state of Texas. This person, his name's Jonathan Carey Donnelly. So he goes, my name is Jonathan. I'm 54. He does not live here, and I don't think that's a current residence no more. At the time of the incident described in this affidavit, I was resided in 1600 Hutchison Street, Maddenville, Louisiana. I am owner of Don Swinger LLC, a commercial writing, editing, and web consulting firm working actively in both San Antonio and New Orleans from September 1997 to February 11, 2009. I was the founding editor-in-chief of NOLA.com, the advanced internet affiliate of the Times Picayune of New Orleans, as well as MardiGras.com. NOLA.com is a leading news, entertainment, and community engagement site in New Orleans. I departed NOLA.com as part of the company layoffs announced February 11th. As a part of my responsibilities at NOLA, I oversaw the website user engagement features, working to build and nurture online community through the community photo and video submission forms, community blogging, and public comment on blog posts, and also oversaw adherence of terms and service, particularly the rules guiding forms and comments during and after Katrina. Blogs became primarily method for distributing of breaking news from the Times Picayune, and user comments were a major part of our mandate to bring the community into active participation in the news based on our commitment, contributed content. What the heck was that? content. In the course of these audience engagement duties, I was aware that beginning of the latter half of 2006, a group of registered users developed whose comments led me to believe they were employees, colleagues, or friends of the U.S. Corps of Engineers. This group became active as news stories involved the question, the Corps, flood protection, system design, criticism of the Corps by outside engineers, and the role that the Mississippi River Gulf outlet may have played in the levee failures that inundated New Orleans in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. So in the documentary, if you watch the documentary and hearing people's personal stories, according to them, allegedly, they said that the state knew that these levees were not stable enough to withhold those waters. And even like Hurricane Katrina, they knew it was going to break. They knew it was going to crack. And knowing that before even Katrina came, they failed to fix it. It wasn't until after Katrina hit that they finally fixed the levee. And to this day, some speculate, allegedly, they still think that it's not stable enough. And some say that they think it is stable enough. But as the waters start to grow, the levee has to start growing as well. It has to start going up inches and inches just to keep the water away from the community. I observed perhaps 20 registered users with a dedicated cadre of perhaps half that member who appeared to be the Corps of Engineers, stakeholders presenting themselves as ordinary citizens of New Orleans, residents of Lakeview, and other areas that have been devastated by the levee failures. By ordinary citizens, I mean that the posters took pains to say that they were the authentic voice of New Orleans and that critics of the Corps were fringe elements. The wording of these posts often was similar to Corps of Engineers talking points, and at times almost verbalism, such as the use of our user engagement tools were within the scope of our terms of service, in my determination. As the time went on, however, it was clear that the number of these posters were keeping watch over the forums and blogging comments and not allowing any criticism to go unchallenged. At times, this rose to verbal abuse of critics of the Corps, ad hominem attacks. Other posts were more problematic, and then that they appealed to racial division and at times engaged in racial slurs against African Americans. An example of the first was a running theme that criticism of the Corps of Engineers was being orchestrated by the African American community, accusing that the Corps bore blame for the levee failures was a result of the African American community playing racial politics. An example of more overt type of comment was that the city may have been improved by the scoring of African American neighborhoods and the dispersal of residents of those neighborhoods away from New Orleans. My impression was that some of these posers were trying to appear to be average citizens of predominantly white areas of the city, were attempting to tap into potential racial hostility and gain support of the Corps. Any such examples were dealt with as appropriate under our terms of service and by the company. So I think basically this guy's affidavit is like talking about how they were. So back then, people were vlogging Hurricane Katrina. The ones who stayed in New Orleans were doing their own little vlogs and were just sharing their experience of what was going on in Katrina and how they were, home and what they were experiencing, what they were witnessing during those hours of Katrina making landfall and after. So I think what the affidavit was, it was saying that, there's people who are, I think what he's trying to say, posing as a company and is attacking people, if I'm understanding that right. Listen, I'm not racist. You could be any color. I love you. I love everyone in this world, because at the end of the day, it's not about the color of your skin. We're all the same people. No one's above each other. We all bleed the same color. We all come out from the same way. So I don't get how it's 2025 and people are still racist. Like, I think this is what the affidavit that I just read was about, was kind of talking about how these people were posing as a company and were being racist to the community. But I am going to show you another documentation. It's redacted, by the way. Good, because I don't need to be exposing anybody's. So this is from, it's a 7-page. This is from the company called Sundown Energy. Calumet is the owner of West Potash facility, which discharged oil or pose a substantial threat of discharging oil to navigate waters on or about August 29, 2005, subsequent to Hurricane Katrina, making landfall near the facility. Calumet, which is responsible party under the Oil Pollution Act, is liable for removal costs resulting from discharge. It incurred costs to conduct removal actions for the discharge of oil from 2 in-service oil storage tanks located at the facility in August 2005. Sundown originally submitted to claim an oil spill liability trust fund on November 14, 2007, seeking reimbursement of removal costs in the amount of like $1 million. Sundown asserted that it is not liable for the removal costs because the discharge of oil was caused solely by Hurricane Katrina, and that Katrina was an act of God. Katrina made landfall in Florida as a Category 1 hurricane on August 25, 2005. In anticipation of Katrina making landfall in Louisiana, Governor Blanco, governor of the state of Louisiana, declared the state of emergency on August 26, 2005. Katrina made landfall at Barras, Louisiana, as a Category 3 hurricane at 6:10 a.m. on August 29, 2005. Sundown's West Potash facility is located 2 miles northeast/upper river of Port Sulphur, Louisiana. Its eastern boundaries is located in the west banks of Mississippi River, adjacent to the road routed along the toe of the protected levee side of the river. Its western boundaries is a parallel levee, commonly referred to as the back protection levee. Thus, the entire facility is located between Mississippi River levee and the back levee. Evaluation at the facility is approximately 4.5. So I think basically what this is, what we're reading, I believe it is this company, either it's telling them, that they want to be paid because I think something was damaged. That's from what I'm getting. Oil, I think an oil tank was damaged during Katrina, or higher than. Yeah, so basically they're saying that they shouldn't have to clean, I guess, whatever mess that the tank left during Katrina. They're wanting to be paid for it. So this is what this is, basically. This article, this affidavit. And they're talking about how, I guess they're talking about how they didn't have the time to go and get it before Katrina made landfall. So that'll be on my Discord if you want to read that, like the whole thing. Now, this is a 737-page documentation that I was talking to you about. Is my thing not letting me talk? Is my mic? Hold on. Am I not? Is my thing not? Okay, it is talking. Okay, I don't know why. I feel like it's not talking to my end. So this is Hurricane Katrina, nation still unprepared. This is a special report of the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. So this is the full report. If you want to read the 737 pages, you can. It's on my Discord. But before we get into it, let's watch a little video. I need to make sure this is not okay. So this is from the news. Oh, not on my end. My bad. Let me share this one, and you guys could see it. And then I'm gonna pull up different reports in the background.
It was the biggest weather story to hit the U.S. Katrina.
Very serious situation
A
here.
once in a lifetime storm.
This could be the big one.
Talking about a storm
It's a Category 5.
But before the world even knew her name, there were those on the ground bracing for the biggest story of their lives.
The water's gonna be deep.
Top of the car. That is very real.
I was thinking this is the moment that we've all dreaded.
Reporters at this one local station would dig in, get the pictures, tell the story.
It's far from
The
over.
mayor called for a citywide evacuation.
Let's get the heck out of here.
One of my biggest fears is to say they were out doing journalism and they didn't make it.
The world would see through their eyes the damage, destruction, and human tragedy that trailed this monster. This band of journalists would remain dedicated to the job while their homes were destroyed.
Look at my poor house.
I'm sorry, baby.
Loved ones went missing,
The worst feeling was not knowing where my granddaughter was.
and life as they knew it drowned before them.
Save a Center is right down here.
For 7 days, this team would fan out across a city minefield and learn just what it means to report,
This story was the supreme test of our careers.
what it means to witness history,
I can't even fathom that big monster sitting out there and not saying, we're going to be right here.
what it means to survive hell on earth, and what it means to return and start all over again.
In 3, 2, 1.
7 days that changed New Orleans.
Now I do want you to keep in mind that these 7 days in New Orleans, they don't show you all of it. In the documentary, when I watched it on the Disney Plus, the National Geographic documentary, you see firsthand accounts of people who stayed in the storm, people who couldn't leave the storm, people who had no choice, but they had to stay and ride out the storm. Some who couldn't leave, some who didn't have anywhere to go to leave, the money, the resources. You see those firsthand accounts, and you see the hell that they endure during Katrina and after Katrina. They, my heart and prayers go out to them. I know a lot of them are probably not alive anymore because they grew old of age. But seeing that documentary and seeing what they went to really broke my heart, because I'm like, oh my God, the fact that we're all seeing Katrina, do all these things. Like, there was one in particular where after Katrina, people were having to stay in something called the Superdome, which is located in Louisiana, and the convention center. And they were saying how it was so hot. They had no food. They had no water. So they had to go and break in and loot into the grocery store, and they had to fend for themselves because FEMA, this is where I start talking about FEMA and the president. They felt like they weren't doing anything, that they weren't taking them out. And mostly because the media was portraying that the community was like hoodlums. They were being bad. They were shooting people. They were there was a report allegedly of a little girl who was raped in the bathroom of the Superdome, and they left her there, and they basically they just left her there to die. But there has been no reports of that. It was just little rumors that were going around. There was another one that multiple people were being raped in the Superdome. I actually found a series on TikTok of a girl who said that the Superdome was really scary because, you know, you were with people you didn't know. And in the documentary, they mentioned about the little girl who was allegedly raped and left for dead. And people were like, you don't know who's in the Superdome. You don't know if pedophiles, perverts, murderers are in there. And it is true. Whether it is true or not, to this day, there hasn't been, I couldn't find the reports of it. But like I said, you don't know who you're with. You know, you're out vulnerable in a big super, you know, like kind of like your local place where, like, you know, your local stadium, your local out, like we have the Alamo Dome, your local just anywhere, you know, convention center. You're out in the vulnerable in the middle of open with whatever you can grab with your family, with many different people. You don't know how those people act. And you know, they talk about it and they're like, you know, that the restrooms didn't work, you know, nothing worked. So they had to do their bathroom on the floor. They had to go in the corner and pee. They had to go somewhere and poop. Like they were just stepping on feces, and you know, the kids were going hungry, the babies, the infants, because there was no food, there was no formula, there was no milk, because FEMA and the president assumed that they were causing harm, they were causing bad. They didn't want their people to get hurt. You know, like the soldiers, you know, the people who are going out to deliver food, they didn't want them to get hurt. But looking at it, it was not true. You know, I get why the people loot. You know, I'm not against looting. You know, I'm not for looting, so don't loot. But at that time they had to, because you know, it was all sitting there. They were starving, they were hungry, they had to do what they had to do to survive. And you know, the officers were being hostile with them and things like that. You know, the FEMA guy, in my opinion, through the whole documentary, I feel like the FEMA guy was just a piece of shit. He didn't help them at all. He called back his people who were trying to bring buses, who were trying to take him food. He called them back because apparently rumors were going around and saying that they were doing all these things when really the community was not doing anything. They just wanted to get out of New Orleans. In the documentary, it also talks about how they told them you had to cross the bridge, because at that specific bridge, I think it was the 6th day, you had to cross the specific bridge to get to the other side where they have electricity, food, and water, right? And these people, they were on day 6. They were starving. They were dehydrated. They couldn't walk. They were so exhausted that they walked all the way to this bridge just for them to get to that bridge, for police officers, SWAT teams to hold their guns up and be like, you can't cross because you're terrible to society. Society is portraying you as these people who are just going to go over here, who's going to loot, who's going to steal, who's going to do murders, who's going to do this and that. And they weren't. Simply, they were just people who were trying to get their families to safety, to get them food, to get them water, to get them a shower. They just wanted to get out of all the stuff that they were enduring for almost a week. It wasn't until the 7th day when they finally started taking people out in buses, when they started, you know, transporting people by airplane, that, in my opinion, that I think finally the government decided to do the thing, you know. But the media was portraying them as these terrible people, and they weren't terrible. They were simply just tired. They're hungry. They want to get out of here. They literally stopped search and rescue because the media was portraying that these people were shooting at rescuers, and they weren't. It was all rumors. Rumors by who? The media themselves. The media was making them look terrible, when really they were just trying. They weren't even shooting. They were just trying to get their attention by like, hey, you know, like screaming and like making noise, banging rock, like throwing rocks, like to get their attention. Even the pets, like they said dogs were being violent. They weren't even being violent. They just wanted to get out of the water. The water was so like high up, like they didn't want to drown. They wanted to get out of there. They wanted food, they wanted water. And police officers and SWAT teams, allegedly, they were saying we're shooting at these innocent little animals. And it breaks my heart, because certain media outlets portray things like this. They say like, oh, these people are, you know, they're shooting, you know, even in the documentary it said something about they broke into a rescue helicopter, and started shooting at people. That never happened. None of that ever happened. The people were waving their hands, trying to get the helicopter's attention to pick them up from their house so they can go somewhere where it's not flooded, where they're not sitting in dirty, flooded, infested waters. Like, don't always believe what the media outlet says. And I think with Katrina, this showed me that you cannot always believe what the media says, because in the documentary, you know, you have these people who are coming out and saying their stories on TikTok. Even to this day, there's people who are coming out talking about their stories involving Katrina, and I have those videos that we can watch where they're talking about how they treated them so ugly, how people were walking to higher grounds and SWAT team had their guns ready to shoot them all, you know, with no, excuse my language, but no fucks in the world. Like, they were ready to take out anybody and anybody, which is not fair, because your job as a police officer, as a SWAT team, as anything, including FEMA, is to help and provide people when they need it. And I feel like they failed at their jobs, especially like SWAT team and the police officers. Your job is to help and protect the city. You know, I get it. You lost your stuff too in Katrina. You're upset. You want to get out of there. You also have a job to do. You know, you have to help these people get to higher ground, and you all have to move out together. You know what I'm saying? And I think certain people didn't do that. But it was a good documentary. I think it's called Hurricane Katrina, Rage Against Time, or Time Against something. It's on Disney. It's on Disney Plus. I recommend you see it. I think I mentioned Netflix is dropping one at the end of this month when Katrina hits its 20th anniversary. So let's watch this. And then I'm going to show you some videos I got from TikTok about people's encounter in Katrina.
August 26th, 2005, 6:27 p.m.
Now, you said something that was very, very frightening during the break. Monday, marine forecast, sea level.
Yeah, east of the river, they could be as high as 25 feet.
The calling card is delivered, announcing an unwelcome guest, tracking towards New Orleans. Her name is Katrina.
Katrina.
Katrina had just come over Florida and was heading into the Gulf, and it got stronger, and it gets stronger.
This thing was huge. It was the size of the Gulf of Mexico. I think it's as big as anything we've ever seen before.
On the Mississippi, and just off the Gulf of Mexico, New Orleans is no stranger to hurricanes. For nearly 40 years, Betsy, a Category 4 hurricane, has been the benchmark against which all other storms have been measured. Over the decades, New Orleanians have become accustomed to big storms that lose their steam before landfall. But if Katrina continues to pick up speed and hit at high tide Monday morning, as predicted, New Orleans will be hammered by giant towers of water and vicious winds smashing into their buildings, homes, their lives.
Voluntary evacuations also for St. Bernard, Tangipahoa, St. John the Baptist, St. James.
Norman Robinson is a journalist with 30 years of experience, 10 of them at WDSU TV. His gut tells him This is the big one.
I was thinking that this is the moment that we've all dreaded for the past 30 years. And it's like the bottom fell out of my stomach.
They take to the airwaves, urging residents to evacuate. But the blue skies and light breeze lull the people into a false sense of security.
Don't let this sunny, warm weather fool you right now.
What do you do as a tourist when the hurricane is coming?
And what are we going to do? We're going to ride it out. We're not going to do anything. We're on a second floor, so unless there's a 30-foot storm surge, we're safe. But we have beer, and hopefully the room will stay dry. So we're okay.
In the minds of some, there is no doubt that before this week is out, New Orleans will be in ruins.
A lot of us realized there is something going on here that people need to pay attention to, but they are not.
Saturday morning, August 27th, 2005. Emergency hurricane coverage kicks in. Dangerous as a Category 1, Katrina has already left her mark on Florida. Now she spends the weekend gaining deadly power from the warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico. New Orleans is in her sights. She is on track to hit the area before daybreak Monday.
We're going to be here throughout the duration of the storm. Thank you for joining us. We needed to be on the air 24/7, and we needed to be on the air wall to wall. And that proved to be perhaps the greatest service that we were able to provide, because the key moments are before the storm hits.
Remarkably, some still doubt the path of Katrina and her true threat. Others know better. They see an international story of a world-renowned city on the verge of catastrophe.
There's a lot of different things we can do.
These reporters will be the eyes and ears for the nation, for the world.
I just need to make a phone call if we're going to put somebody on that.
But it is also intensely personal reporting on the neighborhoods they grew up in, the homes they live in, the future they may never have.
Okay, I'm going to show you some videos I got from TikTok of Katrina. Oh. From Katrina. Can I open in a different browser? I can. Okay. I was like, can I open in a different browser? Oh no, I just downloaded it. Okay. By the way, I don't know if I said it. I don't condone in looting. I don't. But like I said, I could see why they did it at that time. So this is from the lower 9th ward. That's from 2005 into now. I got this all from TikTok. So we're going to see some TikTok videos. I'm just going to zoom in like that.
I hear the train is coming. It's rolling around the bend.
So according to the documentary, the lower 9th ward, they said was hit really bad. So this is after Katrina, when the waters finally flushed out.
But that train keeps rolling. All down the San Antonio. All down the San Antonio. When I was just a baby.
So after Katrina, a lot of people did come back and rebuild and started over. Some actually never went back, and they actually went to different parts of the United States and rebuilt their life somewhere else. People said you can go down the lower 9th ward and you can actually see where houses used to be at, where they used to stand at. You can even find like little things from Katrina. But when Katrina hit and after it hit in the documentary, it does mention that the state of Louisiana wasn't going to let these people rebuild. Basically, they were just going to dump everyone's stuff and put brand new things, and people were getting mad and they were saying, no, that's my property. You can't do that. And it is true. It is their property. You can't take away these people's property. You can't start fresh, new, something else when you know for a fact that these people have been working long, hard hours for their property. So you should let these people rebuild on their own property. And I think the state ended up dismissing it and they let the people rebuild. And a lot of people were dealing with insurance. Some of the insurance they had claimed that it was protective during natural disasters, but really none of them ever saw a cent. Some of them never even saw a cent. They had to go to different resources to help them rebuild, which sucks, you know, because you're kind of like, okay, my insurance can help me, you know, like my home insurance, you know, I'm covered. Come to find out, you weren't.
We heard a big boom noise.
Oh, so this one I'm going to show you.
On 9 o'clock, we heard a big boom noise. Boom!
Is from a documentary. Allegedly, people were saying that they think that the levee actually had explosions and it exploded. That's why the water came out. A lot of people are saying no. I just think maybe the levee wasn't so strong that it just broke. That's why the people heard boom, like it sounded like an explosion. But this is from a documentary, and I just wanted to show you guys.
On 9 o'clock, we heard a big boom noise. Boom! And it was loud, loud, loud.
Yes, I heard the explosion. We heard it first, the echo from here. Then it was here. I said, oh my God, it's the end of the world.
We heard some explosions, 2, 3. We thought about, I thought maybe it was an electrical transformer or something popping in the distance.
First, I heard one boom. I thought it was a big transformer. Because Freddie said, it's a transformer. But I said, we've been sitting in the door now for about 2 hours, 3 hours. But it went again. Boom, boom.
I think the lever cracked, and they helped it the rest of the week. They had a bomb. They bombed that sucker.
I didn't only hear the explosion, I felt the explosion. And it should be somebody else heard and felt the explosion besides me.
Now, we are going to see a different one. So this is when the levees broke. I'm trying to find this YouTube video to show you guys, but this is when the levees broke. So during Katrina, they were flooded, but not that flooded. Once the levees broke and the water from the Gulf came in, that's when they really got super flooded.
Right now, what we're showing you is Memorial Hospital here, west of downtown New Orleans. Show you the parking lot of the hospital, give you an idea of how deep the water is.
We have some concerned employees that want to check on 2 locations.
Okay, what are you looking for?
Okay, the first one is the lakefront area.
I think there's very little doubt Lakefront got a lot of water.
Yeah, and especially out there in that area by Lakefront Airport in the New Orleans East part of the lakefront. From what we've been hearing, a lot of New Orleans East has been inundated.
The Heights in Avondale.
Avondale did fairly well as far as water.
So, oh, not full screen. No. So I do actually have, now that they brought up Memorial, I do have a story regarding the Memorial Hospital. Something interesting that came up. But yes, I would think maybe the news would blur out when they find bodies in the water, and they didn't. They showed it. In the documentary, a story of a woman who was being saved with her family. It broke my heart. Said that they were on the boat. She's telling you her firsthand experience in these documentaries. These people are coming out and telling you, you know, what they experienced, what they saw on Katrina. They saw some things in Katrina that to this day they still see in in the back of their mind. But this woman was being rescued with her family. Rescuers were taking her to, I think they picked them up. They were on their boat. I think they were on their way to a station where they had to drop them off. So they're on the boat, they're going, and this woman says she saw a baby, a 8-month-old or a 5-month-old little baby girl floating in the water. She was deceased. And she told the guy, hey, can we grab this baby? I want to take the baby, where we're going, so I can give it to police officers so that way they can notify or try to find the parents, next of kin, and let them know, hey, here's your baby, it's deceased. And the guy said, no, we're only focusing on helping the ones that need help, So she goes, please, it's a baby, have some respect. So the guy who's rescuing them gets a stick, kicks the baby with the stick, and the baby floats. And she says she cried so bad because, all she wanted to do was to take that baby to the officers and be like, hey, I know this baby's deceased, but if her family is looking for her, her parents, her loved ones, here's her body, so that way they know, okay, she's deceased, But no, I don't know if they ever recovered the baby's body. I know they recovered some people's body. From what I've heard on reports, allegedly to this day, there's still people who are missing from Katrina. There's still people who say that they've never heard from their loved ones. They don't know where their loved ones are. There's pets that are still missing. There's people who are still missing from Katrina. Mind you, we're about to hit 20 years later and there's still people missing. When the waters broke, when the levees broke and the water from the Gulf came in, all the deceased bodies that were already floating in the water, they went wherever they could. They either went into the Gulf, and once they go into the Gulf of Mexico, the sharks, the wildlife is gonna eat. It's gonna eat them. They probably floated somewhere else to a different state. Nobody knows. But allegedly to this day, there's still people who are still looking for their missing loved ones from Katrina. And that the story about the baby really did hit me hard because I'm like, oh my God, what if, her family lost her and they're probably still looking for her? Did they ever recover the baby when they were recovering bodies? Did they ever recover the baby? I think about it. But this is a home footage from Katrina. This is when the levees broke. There we are. You can see the motorcycle. Get your right hand on the shoulder. So that was the waters after the levees broke, which is so sad. All that water came on land, on shore. So I do want to talk about, before I show you some 911 calls, I want to read you these posts that I saw on TikTok of people talking about their experience during Katrina. I muted myself instead of sharing my screen. Why did I do that? Okay, there we go. So I'm going to show you a comment of a girl who says she experienced Katrina. So she says, I lived in Chalamet at the time and was very close to my neighbor. When we were told to evacuate, she refused. I begged her to come with me to Baton Rouge to one of my family members' houses for shelter. She refused and said she'll see me when I get back. I never heard from her again. I miss you, Sharita. This is a girl. She had a neighbor who said she was going to ride out the storm. She told her, no, come on, come with me. Let's go to Baton Rouge. You know, my family's going to take you in. And she's like, no, I'll see you when I come back. 20 years later, she's never heard from her neighbor. Do we know if they ever found her neighbor's body? I don't think so. I don't think they ever recovered her body if she did end up deceased. And I have another one. My mother couldn't afford to leave. She had 5 children. We were very poor. We was stuck in a 3-floor apartment uptown New Orleans and had about 14 to 15 feet of water. When I tell you I don't wish none of what we experienced onto no one, I mean that. My little brother and neighbor was on the roof of the apartment holding a help us sign that my little sister made out of a closet door. It's so much I can't even explain it. I have another one. It's kind of blurry. I'm sorry. I don't know why it's blurry. Maybe I can fix it. Hang on. There it goes. So another one, she says, I went into labor on the 28th, rode it out at home, 15 miles from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Gave birth on the 30th. My son spent the first 2 weeks of his life with no electricity and wearing nothing but a diaper to help with the heat. It was rough. This was the day our government will not save you. It's every person for themselves. In the documentary, it's literally going to show you it was every person for themselves. Literally. I do have this girl. She talks about her experience of Katrina. I had to zoom out just in case because I'm heading to TikTok and you don't know what TikTok shows some dumb stuff sometimes. Okay, why is it not? What is it doing? Okay, there it goes. So I know the audio's not that good. But she's talking about her experience. So she was young. She was 5 to 6 years old. And she is telling you that her family was basically preparing for Katrina. I don't know why the audio's not cooperating on this end. It's on my Discord if you want to see it. I'm not gonna end it, but I'm gonna go on to the next video I'm gonna show you. But go under my Discord under the Hurricane Katrina section, and you can find her TikTok and where she talks about her experience. But I do want to talk about where is it? I do want to show you some of the 911 calls. They've never before heard 911 calls when Hurricane Katrina was happening, when the levees broke. So I'm going to show you that right now. And then we're going to see another video. And then I think I have an article. Let me present it on the screen.
And is the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina barreling into the Gulf Coast. New Orleans' levee system could not protect the city, and 682 were killed, many in their homes. As the waters rose, there were many desperate calls for help. Some have never been heard until now. Mark Strassman now with some of the people who made those calls and those who answered.
When the levees burst, 911 calls poured in with the floodwater.
102. I need someone out here, ma'am. I'm gonna die in this attic.
This one from 2544 DeBriel Street.
The water is steady rising in the attic, ma'am. And I'm gonna drown in the attic. And I'm 37 years old.
Operator Paula Massey took that call. Now retired, she's still living in New Orleans.
What's it like to hear that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and it brings back memories. And it was nothing that I can do to help the lady get out of her attic.
Katrina's winds and water were too dangerous to send emergency crews.
You just wonder what happened. What was the end result?
We tracked her down. She's alive, living in Texas.
Great. Great.
What could you hear in people's voices?
Fear. Terror.
Operator Tina Berry Doyle spent 12 hours on the phone that night.
Could you imagine getting a call where someone is saying that they're trapped, there's no way out, and just stay on the phone with me because I know this is it.
And how did you handle that?
I prayed. It's kind of hard to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought somebody was coming.
Sontel Rush called 911 from this home in the city's lower 9th Ward. From that same attic, we played for her that call for help.
I'm stuck in the egg, and me and my little sister and them and my mama, and they got water in the whole house.
By the second night, I just was like, we're going to die in here.
An uncle rescued them after 3 days without food or water. Lakeview was also underwater. Sue Daniel called 911 from her attic.
My mother and I, we stranded in the attic, and she's a diabetic.
I realized after I got off the phone that I was going to be the help.
Daniel put her 79-year-old diabetic mother on an air mattress and swam for safety across this road to the roof of this shed.
And how long did you spend on that roof?
26 hours. We were there overnight.
You hear it over and over on these 911 calls. People were on their own.
Pray for me, huh? Oh, Sarah, I will pray. I will have to pray for everybody, even myself.
A man named John Ference made that last call. He survived, but at least 3 of his neighbors did not. Nora, what you hear time and again on both ends of those 911 conversations is a feeling of helplessness.
All right, Mark Strassman there in a musical New Orleans today.
I mean, it sucks because they were calling 911 after the levees broke and was like, help me, I'm trapped, I'm stuck, I can't go anywhere. What do I do? The water's coming in. What do I do? And they were like, well, they couldn't do anything because they couldn't send people to go and rescue them. They couldn't send anybody to go and rescue them, So on my Discord, under Hurricane Katrina, I have the raw, not like the not redacted pictures of Hurricane Katrina before, during, and after the aftermath, the week that these people had to endure wanting to get out of where they were. It's on my Discord. I can't show you it because it does show deceased bodies in the water, and out of respect, I'm not going to show it. But if you want to see them and what, and I can show you some of it. I'm not going to show you all of it. But if you do want to see it, it's under my Discord. So these, the community faced so much. They were in the heat. They had no electricity. They had no food. They had little water. They were in, survival mode. They were doing what they could to survive for them and their children. You have little babies, like literal babies, kids, toddlers, elderly, some who needed to be on ventilators, who had needed their oxygen tank to be plugged in, sitting there and waiting for almost a week for the government, for FEMA to come and get them, to pick them up, to take them somewhere where it's dry, safe, where they can have food, water, where they can get their oxygen they need. You had them sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Hurricane Katrina, they portrayed it as, oh, it was a bad storm. It was a category 3. Did I mute myself? I did. It was a category 3, it was a category 5 to category 3. They were waiting and waiting and waiting. And, I think if the media never portrayed the way they portrayed how the community was acting, they probably would have got out sooner, everybody. But it's sad. It's sad seeing this. Somebody told me, I was talking to a friend, and she's like, can you imagine how the people from the Texas flood, the recent flooding from Texas felt? How they had to wait in their homes, how some of them washed away. And I was like, thinking about it, I mean, any weather related things, any hurricane, tsunami that people experience, it's sad. It sucks, but my heart and prayers go out to the victims, the families, everyone in Katrina, anyone who's gone through, weather disaster. It sucks because, like I said, to this day, they still can't find people who are missing from Katrina. And, there's people are left with the question as, what happened, like the lady we read, she never heard from her neighbor. She's probably like, what happened to my neighbor? Some people are like, what happened? The baby, did they ever get the baby's, did they ever inform the baby's family, like, hey, we found your baby? Did they ever do that? Did they ever find the baby? Did they ever find anybody, And it's sad. It is. Hang on, guys. My mic is being weird. Hold on. Hang on. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay, you can hear me. Perfect. So now, while while I talked about how the community was, going through so much hell when they were stuck in their homes, when they were looking, trying to figure out what happened to their loved ones, being in the Superdome in the convention center, hot, no food, no water, I didn't talk to you about the hospitals, the apartments. So in the apartments, some say that some residents didn't make it because the water went, the water flooded half of the apartment. Some of them who were on the top of the apartments or the hotels, some of them did end up making it out, some didn't. Now, I didn't talk to you about the hospitals. So during Katrina, one hospital in particular that they talked about was Memorial Hospital. Now, Memorial Hospital, they... What the heck? They, they had patients in Memorial. They basically told the patients, we're going to ride it out together. We can't go anywhere. We can't move you. They did move some people. Some people they couldn't. Some of them had to stay and ride out the storm with these, nurses, these doctors, expecting mothers had to stay in the hospital and give birth. Now, Memorial Hospital is well known and talked about during Katrina because of what happened at Memorial Hospital. Now, there's a documentary. It's called 5 Days at Memorial. And I've seen the documentary, and I was like, whoa, what? Like, what do you mean this happened? And, when people, even to this day, some people don't even know what happened at Memorial Hospital. So I'm going to tell you what happened at Memorial Hospital. So during the 5-day period from August to September 1st of 2005, while 200 patients were trapped at Memorial Hospital in New Orleans by Hurricane Katrina floodwaters, all power went out and temperatures soared to over 105 degrees. The lack of sanitation created a rancid smell, and no running water was available, basically transforming the hospital in a site for third world medicine. So, like during Katrina, there's no water, there's no running water, there's no electricity. So people had to use the toilets knowing they couldn't flush it. So you can imagine all the feces and everything that was piling up, even in the hospitals, to the basically everywhere. You can also imagine how in the Superdome, like I mentioned, people had to do the bathroom and wherever they were standing because there was nowhere to go. They were stepping on their feces. They were sleeping on it because they had to stay in the Superdome. Another one is with the rising water, a lot of people were getting diseases. They were getting, cuts and burns because the water was so dark and nasty and muggy because it had all this debris and nasty stuff. People were, when they were walking, they were cutting themselves. So they were getting disease from the water. They were getting sick. So that's another thing I wanted to bring up. Back to this. Ambulatory patients were gathered in the lower floors to await airboats. The bedridden patients had to wait for days for the helicopter arrivals on the heliport atop and 7-story garage. While despairing what they would have never arrived, severely ill patients who were carried up to the roof could only be fanned as they awaited helicopters. But by Wednesday, August 31st, very few helicopters or boats came as Coast Guard resources were occupied pulling approximately 6,000 people from rooftops of homes in the flooded city. On the morning of September 1st, 2005, Dr. Pooh and others were informed by the tenant, the hospital ownership incident commander, that no help was coming, and apparently the hospital was abandoned. Dr. John Kokomer, who also heard the statement from Tenant Incident Commander, told 60 Minutes he was dumbfounded. Dr. Poe and two nurses, after consulting the incident commander in charge of evacuation and others, rendered palliative care and to ease the discomfort of the number of these bedridden acute care patients on the 7th floor. The medical records of these patients reflected their serious medical condition, which deteriorated with each passing hour. Did it not? Is it not going to go? Okay. Well, I guess I did want to. It's okay. I have another article. So basically, some of these, patients couldn't be, they couldn't airlift them, so they had to wait for days. Some of them did end up passing tragically because they needed, certain things to keep them, going, and they couldn't get that because one, they had no electricity. Two, but the helicopters were at halt because they were helping others. They were doing this, they were doing that. So tragically, a lot of them did pass away. So Dr. Pooh and two nurses were arrested overnight in New Orleans, where they were charged with second-degree murder in connection with patient's death at the city's hospital. The deaths occurred in the chaotic days after Hurricane Katrina. Dr. Pooh and nurses Sherry Landry and Lori Boudou were accused of using a cocktail of sedatives and painkillers to unalive 4 patients whose ages ranged from 62 to 91. The deaths occurred after the hospital was cut off by floodwaters. At the time, it was uncertain whether the patients could be evacuated. But today, Louisiana Attorney General Charles Foodie says the deaths were not mercy killings. In describing the charges, Foodie said the 3 pretended that maybe they were in God in the cases of the 4 people, but there were more than 30 deaths in Memorial Hospital at the same time. So I was reading this, and according to them, and according to what I got from the documentation, the documentary was basically this doctor, Dr. Pooh. Allegedly, she was a gynecologist. So she was a doctor for women's private parts, and her 2 nurses. And basically, she was there with her nurses, and they were saying, from what I heard allegedly was that they said that, there wasn't going to be any help. They needed to make room for the new patients they were bringing in, the people who were coming in with the cuts, with the diseases from the water, the heat exhaustion from the heat, and, many other things. So they're like, what do? We don't have no space. We don't have nowhere to put them. Allegedly, all speculations and opinions, they came up with that plan to start eliminating some patients, the ones who were already in the do not resuscitate, or the ones who had the do not resuscitate, or who were almost in the vegetable state. Some of them who needed to be on ventilators, or their oxygen tanks. Those were the ones they were mainly targeting. And it sucks, and it was sad because, they're like, why would a nurse, 2 nurses and a doctor do that? Why would you do that to these people? You had no right to do that to them. You had no right at all. So, like, why would you do that? First of all, you're not even a doctor. Well, you are a doctor, but you're a doctor for something else. Does that make sense? Like what gave you the authority for you and your 2 nurses to think that was okay? That's not okay. they were charged. But I was seeing the documentary and I was like, oh my God, like I never knew about that. I don't think nobody's knew about that. So that's why I decided to put it on tonight's live, because I'm kind of like, whoa, like, when you think about Katrina, you think about like the devastation that happened within the community. You probably didn't even know what was going on in the hospital, just Memorial Hospital. What about if there is other hospitals there? You don't know what happened in the other hospitals. It is crazy. I'm going on an hour 30. So I think I'm going to end it here. So that is a little thing regarding Hurricane Katrina. If you want to know more about Hurricane Katrina, or if you want to read any of the documentations I read today, you can head over to my Discord. It is all there. It's under the Hurricane Katrina section. My heart, prayers, and condolences go out to anyone who was affected by Hurricane Katrina. If you're still missing your loved ones, I hope you find out something about them. I know there's some people to this day who don't know where some of their family members are, some of their neighbors, their friends. But that's going to conclude tonight's stream. And tomorrow I'm coming on live again around same time, 8:30, 9 o'clock Central Time. We are going to talk about the San Isidro McDonald's massacre. I watched a documentary on it this past weekend and it was crazy. So we're going to watch it. If you've never heard about this case, you're going to learn about this case. It is very gruesome. It's very sad. I do have the raw walkthrough footage of the crime scene on my Discord. I don't know how I got it, but I got it with all the documentation that I got it from, and it was in there. I'm not going to show it. I don't know if I'm not going to show it, but it came with the documentation. I'm like, why is this in here? And it's not even redacted. I'm like, why is it in here? I don't want this. But it's in the documentation. I can't take it off my Discord. If anyone knows how to do that, can you let me know? Because like, whoa. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Sunday, I'm on live again, and we're going to finish up our Casey Anthony Part 2 series. We're going to deep dive into the case a little bit more. We're going to read all the documentation and everything. But, and then I think, what is it? Hold on. Casey Anthony Sunday. I think Monday I have the 11th. It's the 11th Monday? Yeah. Monday, we're going to talk about Columbine, Uvalde, Parkland, and Sandy Hook shootings that occurred. Only reason I'm going to talk about it is because since school is starting up again, we have to think about these. It's sad to say, but we have to think about these school shootings. You would think that ever since Columbine, when they said that they were going to change the gun laws, you would think they would actually change the gun laws, but they really didn't. Look how many school shootings we've gone through over the years. So I am going to bring awareness to some of them, and I am going to share you as parents, or if you show this to your kids, resources on what to do if, I hope not, that it does not happen again. If a school shooting does occur, what to do. And now it sucks because now in Texas, they ban kids from using their phones. So now it's going to suck because now how are kids going to get a hold of their parents? I don't know why they passed that law. My governor is a piece of shit. And I think that's just the most stupidest law ever. Why would you ban phones in school? Yes, I get it. Like, you want the kids to pay more attention, but what if an emergency happens? How are they going to get a hold of the parents? It is just, I just don't get my governor or the president. But that's Monday's live. And then I think the 15th, I have the Chicago Tylenol murders. When I heard about the Chicago Tylenol murders, it made me look at Tylenol way different. I don't want to take Tylenol at all. Like the other day, I was feeling sick, and someone was like, "Take a Tylenol," and I was like, "Okay." Right when I was gonna take it, I don't know, the Chicago Tylenol murders came in my mind. I was like, "Nope, I'm not taking it." Like, so I don't if you've never heard about the Chicago Tylenol murders on the 15th, I don't know when it is. We're gonna be talking about it, but we have more true crime to talk about. We have more lives coming up. We're gonna talk about Casey Anthony. I do want to talk about the Army base and the university, the two shootings that just happened. I think it was today, right? It was a university. I have it written somewhere. I want to talk about it. It happened today, and then the other day it was the one on the fort on the base. I want to talk about that one as well. That'll be coming up soon to the channel with many, many different cases. And I want to talk about Sebastian Rogers. It's been a year. It's about to be 2 years in February. And we still don't know where Sebastian Rogers is. We have no new leads. We don't know anything about where Sebastian Rogers went. I want to talk about Sebastian Rogers. I want to dig deep into this case. No matter what was going on with these YouTubers, one of them almost going to jail. One of them went to jail. Some of them suing and fighting each other. I don't care about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm solely talking about Sebastian Rogers and what happened to him back in February of 2024. Where did Sebastian Rogers go? Where is Sebastian Rogers? It is almost 2 years and nobody has seen, heard, or know anything about Sebastian Rogers. And I do want to talk about that. So that'll be coming up soon as well. But I want to thank everybody, my replay crew who are seeing this. You guys are amazing. You guys are the best. Make sure you like and subscribe. Join my Discord if you want to see all the information I put on these different cases, or if you have a case you want me to talk about, you can send it to my Discord. You can send it to my email, which is in my description. But get ready, because we have more true crime coming up. I've missed you all so much, and I'm gonna be coming back on live more. But yeah, my heart and prayers go out to everyone who was affected by Katrina. When I saw the documentary, it broke my heart because I was like, well, I didn't know any about that, because the news showed one side of it. And seeing, these firsthand experience of what they, and what the community endured, what everyone endured, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And I always come on my platform and I try to speak for them. And I try to show their stories. And it sucks, because not a lot of podcasters do that. They don't really share the victims' stories. And this is why I created my channel, because there's cases that are left in the unknown that nobody talks about. Like Aubrey Wyatt, for example. We talked about her when I first started. Nobody ever talked about Aubrey Wyatt, and I talked about her. Nobody's talked about Hurricane Katrina, and I decided to talk about it, Casey Anthony, some people talk about her, not a lot. But yeah. I hope you guys have a nice rest of your Friday. I will see you tomorrow, 8:30 Central Time. I do want to try to take phone calls Sunday. So hopefully I have enough people Sunday that we can do phone calls. But yeah, I love you all. Be safe. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.